All right, let's dive into this management control systems textbook you sent over.
Yeah.
Get into the nitty-gritty.
Absolutely.
How companies use these systems to,
Keep it all together.
stay in control.
Yeah.
So I think when a lot of people hear control systems, they immediately jump to
Spreadsheets,
budgets,
yeah.
numbers, like really rigid stuff.
Right.
But it's actually a lot more dynamic than that, right?
It is. It's more about it's the company's nervous system.
Oh, okay.
You know how it senses and reacts and adjusts to keep everything in balance?
I like that a lot, a nervous system.
Yeah.
So to lay the groundwork here, how does our textbook actually define management control systems?
Well, it basically says it's a set of processes
Okay.
that helps organizations use their resources
Right.
to best achieve their goals.
Makes sense.
And that could be anything from financial resources to human capital to intellectual property.
So we're not just talking about
Not just bean counting.
Yeah.
It's about making sure everything's working together.
Right. It's about aligning every part of a company towards a common goal.
That's it.
I like it.
Yeah.
Our source mentions this hierarchy of control idea, 3 levels that kind of build on each other.
Yes.
What's the big picture there?
Well, each of those 3 levels of control operates at a different level of the organization,
Okay.
and they all have a different time horizon
Gotcha.
and focus.
Okay.
So at the very top,
Right.
you have strategic planning.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where you set the overall direction, the long-term vision, the big goals that you're aiming for.
So that's kind of like setting the course for a long journey.
Exactly.
Right.
But then you need to make sure you're actually on course.
Right. That's where that second level comes in. Management control.
Management control is right.
So management control is about what? Translating those big strategic plans into like the actual steps.
Actionable steps, yeah.
And then monitoring progress along the way.
That's right.
So this is where you start allocating resources, setting targets, measuring performance.
Yes, so you get it.
Making sure you're moving towards that destination.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got strategic planning, charting the course,
Yeah.
management control, making sure the ship is sailing in the right direction.
Yes.
But what's keeping the engine running smoothly on a day-to-day basis?
That's where operational control comes in.
Operational control.
Yeah.
So that's like the nitty-gritty details.
That's it.
Okay.
Making sure all those individual tasks and processes are running smoothly.
Okay.
So you're monitoring production output, you're managing inventory, you're ensuring quality control.
Okay, so basically keeping the ship running smoothly.
On a daily basis, yeah.
Every day. Wow, that's amazing how these levels all connect.
It's a chain of command.
Yeah,
But for making sure things get done.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So the book also dives into how organizational structure
Yes.
actually impacts this whole control system. I've definitely worked in companies that have like really rigid structures.
Yeah.
And it definitely affects how decisions are made and
Oh, yeah, for sure.
like how quickly things move.
Yeah.
So what did you find most insightful in this section about the organizational structure?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that the way a company is structured really influences its control mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
So you take a functional organization,
Okay.
control tends to be very centralized,
Right.
with decisions flowing down from the
Top down. Okay.
But then if you look at a divisional structure,
Mm-hmm.
you have a little more decentralized control.
Okay.
Each division has more autonomy.
Right. More freedom to make their own.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then there are matrix structures, which always seem to add a whole other layer of complexity.
they do.
The source even calls them out as like potential hotbeds of conflict.
And for good reason,
Yeah, why is that?
because you have dual reporting lines.
Okay.
So employees might report to a functional manager and a project manager. So then it gets confusing.
Right. Who's in charge?
Who's in charge?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got conflicting priorities.
Right.
It's like having 2 captains on a ship.
Yeah, that's not a good recipe for smooth sailing.
No, it's not.
I've seen that play out in real life, and it's a mess.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
It's in good.
You realize how important clear communication is
Really?
and roles and all that stuff.
For sure.
But let's zoom in on like a key building block of these control systems.
Okay.
Something the textbook calls responsibility centers.
Yes.
I'm curious to hear more about what they are and how they work in practice.
So basically, responsibility centers are units within the organization,
Okay.
and they're held accountable for specific activities and outcomes.
Oh,
They're like mini businesses within the company.
okay.
Each of them has their own goals, their own resources, and their own performance measures.
So it's about dividing and conquering.
Giving different teams or departments ownership over their specific areas.
Right.
The textbook had this great anecdote about the PADTA system
Yeah.
used in Burla organizations.
I love that.
Where they give their business unit leaders just a ton of autonomy.
Yeah, they do.
Really highlights how these responsibility centers can empower people on the ground.
It's a great example of how trust and decentralization can be so effective.
Yeah.
Because you give managers clear responsibility and the authority to make decisions.
Makes them feel valued and trusted.
And you end up with a more agile and responsive organization.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It really is fascinating how giving people ownership can
It's a powerful thing.
Boost morale and results.
It is.
But of course, with responsibility comes accountability.
Right.
How do companies actually measure performance within these responsibility centers?
Yeah, good question.
Is it all about the bottom line?
Well, it's tempting to think that profit's the only metric that matters.
Yeah.
But the textbook digs a little deeper, and it highlights how a narrow focus on short-term profit can actually backfire.
Yeah, there's that example in the book where
a
manager might actually reject a project that's profitable overall just because it would dip their ROI below a certain target.
Yes.
Seems kind of counterintuitive.
It does.
But I guess it happens more than we realize.
It does, yeah.
It's a classic case of how the wrong metrics can drive the wrong behavior.
Absolutely.
So then organizations need to consider a broader range of performance measures.
They do.
Really aligning them with their long-term strategic goals.
That's right.
So what are some of those alternative ways to gauge success?
Well, there are a bunch of tools and metrics out there.
Okay.
And they each have their own strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
So you've got residual income, or RI.
Okay.
And that focuses on how much profit a responsibility center generates above a minimum desired return.
Right.
Then you've got EVA, or economic value added.
Okay.
And that factors in the cost of capital.
Gotcha.
To give you a more comprehensive picture of value creation.
All right, so it's taking a more holistic view.
Yeah, exactly.
Of what success really means.
Yes.
Not just about crunching numbers, but understanding the human impact too.
For sure.
Speaking of strategy, the source also dives into some classic tools like SWOT analysis and Porter's 5 forces.
Yes.
Those are frameworks I've encountered before.
Yeah, they're pretty popular.
But I'm curious to hear how they tie into this whole management control system idea.
Well, it's all about connecting the dots between strategy and execution.
Okay.
So take SWOT analysis.
All right.
It helps you identify your internal strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
As well as the external opportunities and threats you're facing.
Right. So it's like getting a lay of the land.
Yeah, exactly.
Figuring out where you stand.
That's a good way to put it.
But then how does that translate into actual action?
Well, that's where the control system comes in.
Okay, I see.
It helps you track progress, allocate resources effectively.
Right.
Make course corrections when you need to.
So it's like a navigation system that guides you toward your
strategic destination.
I like it.
Yeah.
And what about Porter's 5 forces?
Porter's 5 forces.
That one's always felt a little bit like a
business school war game.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're like analyzing all the competitive forces.
Right.
At play in the industry.
It's all about understanding the dynamics of your competitive landscape.
Okay.
So things like the threat of new entrants, the bargaining power of buyers and suppliers, the threat of substitute products or services, the intensity of rivalry among existing competitors.
It's like a strategic chess match.
It is. It's a lot to consider.
Figuring out your best moves.
Exactly.
Amidst all these competing forces.
That's right.
But again, how does that connect back to management control systems?
By understanding those forces, you can tailor your control system to respond effectively.
Oh, okay.
For example, if you're facing intense rivalry, your control system might emphasize cost control and efficiency.
Okay.
Or if you're in an industry with high barriers to entry, you might focus on innovation and differentiation.
To maintain a competitive edge.
Exactly.
Oh, that's cool. So it's like customizing your controls to fit the specific challenges of your industry.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how all these seemingly separate concepts actually kind of weave together.
It all comes together.
Into this intricate tapestry.
It does.
Of strategic management.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It's fascinating.
Our textbook also touches on this idea of interactive control.
Oh, yes.
Which seems to take things a step further.
Yeah, interactive control.
What's the gist of that concept?
Well, it's about using your control system not just to monitor and control, but to actually drive learning and innovation.
Hmm.
It's about using the information the system generates to question assumptions, identify new opportunities,
Right.
and adapt to changing conditions.
So it's almost like the control system itself becomes a tool for...
Continuous improvement.
Yeah, it's constantly feeding back into the strategic process.
Exactly. It's a loop.
It's a dynamic feedback loop.
That's it.
Not just like a static set of rules.
Ain't going to be dynamic.
Which is cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
This ties in, I think, with a broader shift in thinking about these systems.
Yes.
Moving away from the traditional 3 S's.
3 S's.
Strategy, structure, systems.
Yeah.
Towards a more holistic approach, focused on 3 Ps.
The 3 Ps.
Purpose, process, people.
Yes.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this shift.
Okay, so it's about recognizing that these systems need to be more than just
Right.
a set of rules and procedures.
Yeah.
They've got to be aligned with the organization's purpose,
Okay.
designed around key processes, and they need to empower people to do their best work.
Right. So it's about finding the right balance between all these elements to create a system that's not only efficient,
Right.
but adaptable.
And innovative.
Innovative.
People-centered.
Right. So, it's like that saying,
Well, yeah,
culture eats strategy for breakfast.
it's true.
You can have the most brilliant strategy in the world,
Right.
but if your culture doesn't support it,
It's going to fail.
it's going nowhere.
Yep.
And that brings us to, I think, a crucial aspect of management control systems
Yes.
that we'll be exploring in the next part of our deep dive,
Okay, great.
the behavioral side of things.
The human element.
Yes. How do you design systems that motivate and empower people rather than demotivating them?
Exactly.
Or encouraging them to, game the system?
You don't want that.
No. I've definitely seen how a poorly designed system can create all sorts of unintended consequences. Can't wait to hear your insights on that.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Okay, so we're back.
Back again.
Ready to tackle this human side of management control systems.
Absolutely.
It's one thing to have all the right structures in place, metrics.
Yeah.
But if the people aren't on board,
it's not going to work.
the whole system falls apart.
The human element's key.
So how do companies design systems that actually work with human nature, not against it?
It's a good question.
I'd love to get into that.
So management control systems, they're really about influencing human behavior.
Okay.
Encouraging people to act in ways that support the organization's goals.
That makes sense.
But that's where things can get tricky.
Yeah, I've definitely seen how a system that's supposed to drive performance can have all these unintended consequences.
Yeah, for sure.
People cutting corners, manipulating numbers, just focusing on hitting their targets.
At all costs.
At all costs, yeah. It's like, the system made me do it.
Right, exactly.
So how do you create that alignment then between individual goals and organizational goals?
It starts with communicating.
Okay.
Communicating the organization's vision.
Okay.
The mission. Strategic objectives.
People need to understand the big picture.
They do.
And how their work fits into it.
Exactly.
It's like connecting the dots between individual effort and collective success.
That's it.
Making sure people feel like they're a part of something bigger
Absolutely.
than themselves.
It's a powerful thing.
And it's about empowering people.
Yes.
Giving them the information they need.
Right.
The authority to act.
Yeah.
The support to
take risks.
Take risks and learn.
Learn from mistakes.
Yeah. It's about fostering that culture of trust and accountability.
Yes.
Not just command and control.
That's right.
Our source also emphasizes the importance of open communication.
Oh, absolutely.
And feedback.
Yeah.
How do those play into this?
Well, open communication.
Yeah.
It's crucial for building trust.
Right.
Making sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
It's got to be a culture where people feel comfortable sharing ideas.
Yeah.
Raising concerns, giving feedback.
Positive and constructive.
Exactly. You need both.
I've definitely been in situations where information was siloed.
Oh, yeah.
People were afraid to speak up.
Yeah, that's not good.
That breeds mistrust.
It does.
Which can just sabotage everything.
Absolutely.
What about transparency?
Transparency is also key.
People need to understand how decisions are made.
Yes.
How performance is measured.
Right.
How rewards are allocated.
Exactly. It's got to be fair.
If they feel like the system is fair.
And transparent.
Yeah.
They're more likely to buy in.
Right. Nobody wants to feel like they're working in a black box.
No.
Or that the rules are constantly changing.
Exactly.
So then what about incentives?
Incentives can be powerful.
Yeah.
But you got to be careful how you design them.
Right. Because I've also seen them backfire.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
if they're not designed properly.
You got to be deliberate about what behaviors you're rewarding.
The textbook gives that example of the sales team.
Oh, yeah.
Incentivized on just the number of deals closed.
Yeah, quantity over quality.
Short-term gains.
Long-term pain.
Exactly.
It's about aligning those incentives
Yeah.
with your long-term strategic goals.
Right, thinking about the big picture.
And think about both financial and non-financial incentives.
Okay.
Recognizing people's contributions.
Right.
Offering opportunities for growth and development.
So those non-financial incentives are really important.
They are.
It's about tapping into that intrinsic motivation.
Yes, absolutely.
That inner drive that comes from feeling valued, challenged, connected to something meaningful.
Purpose is important.
This deep dive has been awesome.
Yeah, it's been fun.
I'm seeing management control systems in a whole new light now.
That's great.
Not just a bunch of rules or metrics. It's a framework.
It's a framework for aligning people.
For achieving goals.
Processes, strategy.
Yeah.
Why should our listeners care about all this?
Well, whether you're a manager, an employee, just someone interested in how organizations work.
Right.
Understanding these concepts can be so valuable.
Yeah, it can help you in your own career.
Navigate your career, yeah.
Understand the dynamics of your workplace.
Absolutely.
Contribute to the success of your organization.
It's powerful stuff.
It's about being an informed participant.
Yes.
Not just a cog in the machine.
I like that.
As we wrap up.
Okay.
What's one key takeaway?
The one thing to remember
Yeah.
is that management control systems are not about stifling creativity.
Oh, okay.
Or micromanaging every detail.
Right.
It's about creating a framework that empowers people to do their best work.
Okay.
Make informed decisions and contribute to the organization's success.
It's about finding that sweet spot between
control and autonomy, structure and flexibility.
Yeah.
Before we sign off.
Right.
Any final thoughts?
Well, our source did touch on the importance of knowledge management.
Okay.
In today's organizations.
Right.
So how can companies incorporate those principles into their control systems?
To foster innovation.
To foster innovation and learning.
Continuous improvement.
It's all about creating a culture of continuous learning and improvement.
Yeah, that's a great question to consider.
It is.
It's all about using the information to make smarter decisions.
Adapt to change.
Stay ahead of the curve.
Be proactive.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
I hope it's been insightful and empowering.
It have been.
For everyone listening out there.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning.
Keep diving deep.